It's been 6 years. 6 long, exhausting, terrifying, and ultimately incredibly rewarding years since David walked out. Our son Leo was 4 then. A whirlwind of sticky fingers, endless questions, and a heart so big it barely fit in his tiny chest. David was a dreamer, but not a doer. He had grand ideas, always the next big thing that was going to make us rich, but he lacked the follow-through, the grit. He was charming. God, he was charming. That's how he got me, I guess. A quick wit, a smile that could melt glaciers, and promises that shimmered like heat haze on a summer road. Beautiful, but ultimately insubstantial. The end wasn't a dramatic explosion. It was more like a slow deflation. I was working a soul-crushing office job, the kind with fluorescent lights that hummed just loud enough to give you a permanent headache. David was between projects, which was his go-to euphemism for unemployed and not really looking. The bills piled up, the unspoken resentment grew. I'd come home, tired to my core, to find him on the couch, controller in hand, just de-stressing before he hit the job boards. Leo would be hungry, the house a mess. The final conversation was quiet, almost anticlimactic. I'd just gotten notice that my department was downsizing. My job was gone. I sat at our rickety kitchen table, the termination letter trembling in my hand, and told him, I expected, I don't know what, concern? A plan? Instead, he looked at me, his handsome face unreadable for a moment, and then he said, Clara, I don't think I can do this anymore. This struggle, it's not what I signed up for. What you signed up for? I remember whispering, the words catching in my throat. What about Leo? What about us? He shrugged, a small, almost indifferent gesture. I'm just not happy, Clara, and you're not either, if you're honest. Maybe this is a sign. A sign. My losing my job was a sign for him to bail. 2 weeks later, he packed a duffel bag and left. No forwarding address at first, just a vague promise to get his act together, and then he'd be in touch about Leo. The first few months were a blur of panic and instant coffee. I was a single mom with a 4-year-old, no job and a dwindling savings account. The weight of it all was crushing. I'd put Leo to bed, then sit in the dim light of the living room, the silence of the apartment pressing in on me, and just cry. Not loud sobs, but those quiet, hopeless tears that just leak out and make your chest ache. The world felt gray, muted. The fear was a constant companion, a cold knot in my stomach that never quite went away. My only solace, my only tiny spark of color in that bleak landscape, was my crafting. I'd always loved working with my hands. Knitting, a bit of sewing, but my real passion was leather work. Small things, wallets, keychains, simple journals. My grandfather had been a cobbler, and I guess some of that ran in my veins. The smell of the leather, the feel of it under my fingers, the rhythmic punch of the awl, the careful pull of the waxed thread. It was meditative. It was the only time the fear receded a little. One rainy afternoon, staring at a pile of overdue bills, a desperate idea took root. What if I could sell these things? It seemed ludicrous. Who would buy my little leather creations? But I was out of options. I took the last $200 from my savings, bought some decent quality leather scraps and a few better tools. I turned my tiny kitchen table into a workshop after Leo was asleep. The apartment perpetually smelled of leather dye and contact cement. My fingers were always sore, stained, and nicked. I started small, an Etsy shop, Kindred Craft Co., a name that felt hopeful, like connecting with unseen spirits. My first sale was a simple card holder. I think I made about $5 profit. I almost cried again, but this time, it wasn't from despair. It was a tiny pinprick of light. The next couple of years were the hardest of my life. I worked every spare second. Leah would be at a cut-rate daycare while I scoured for part-time temp jobs to keep us afloat. Data entry, answering phones, anything. Then I'd come home, feed Leo, play with him, read him stories, tuck him in, and then it was back to the kitchen table until 2 or 3 a.m. My world shrank to leather, thread, shipping labels, and Leo's sweet, sleeping face. The exhaustion was bone deep. There were so many times I wanted to give up, when a bad review would crush me, or a shipment would get lost, or I'd mess up an expensive piece of leather. But then I'd look at Leo. He was my why. He'd sometimes help sitting beside me, carefully sorting my rivets or drawing pictures of Mommy's workshop. He didn't understand the financial pressure, thank God, but he understood that Mommy was working hard. And he was proud of me. That kept me going. Slowly, painstakingly, Kindred Craft Co. grew. I got better. My designs became more intricate, my stitching more precise. I started making custom-tooled journals, beautiful handbags, sturdy belts. I reinvested every penny back into the business. I learned about marketing, about photography, about customer service. I did local craft fairs, standing for hours, my feet aching, my smile feeling stapled on, sometimes selling only a few items, sometimes having a surprisingly good day. The apartment still smelled of leather, but now it was mingled with a faint, sweet scent of possibility. The turning point came about 3 years in. A popular lifestyle blogger stumbled upon my Etsy shop and featured one of my journals. The orders flooded in. I was overwhelmed, terrified I couldn't keep up, but exhilarated. I hired my first part-time helper, another single mom from Leo's school. We moved the workshop out of my kitchen and into a tiny rented studio space above a noisy garage. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. By last year, Kindred Craft Co. was a real, thriving business. We have a small, dedicated team. Our products are in a few boutique stores across the country. We have a loyal online following. I even managed to buy a small house, a fixer-upper, but it has a yard for Leo and a proper workshop space in the converted garage. It's quiet here, peaceful. I can breathe. Leo is 10 now, a smart, funny, well-adjusted kid. He still helps sometimes, mostly by telling me which new designs he thinks are cool. The fear is mostly gone, replaced by a quiet pride and a deep, abiding gratitude. The world has color again. And then 2 months ago, the email landed in my inbox. Subject, a voice from the past. My blood ran cold before I even opened it. It was from David. Clara, it began, all casual, like no time had passed, like he hadn't shattered my world and left me to pick up the pieces. Heard you're doing really well. Saw an article about Kindred Craft Co. online. Impressive stuff. I'm back in town. Figured I'd reach out. Maybe we could grab a coffee, for old time's sake. And I'd love to see Leo, of course. It's been too long. Too long. He made it too long. For the first couple of years after he left, his contact was sporadic at best. A birthday card for Leo with a crumpled $10 bill inside. A brief, awkward phone call every few months where he'd talk about his almost big breaks. Then, for the last 3 years, nothing. Silence. I'd assumed he just drifted off, started a new life somewhere. And a part of me, the part that still remembered the sting of his abandonment, was relieved. Now suddenly, he's back in town and wants coffee. Because he saw an article. The cynicism tasted like ash in my mouth. I ignored the email. For a week, I just let it sit there. A poisonous little toad in my inbox. But it gnawed at me. The old anxieties, the ones I thought I'd buried, started to stir. The atmosphere in my peaceful little house shifted, became heavier. Then the text started. Hey Clara, just following up on my email. Hope you're well. Leo must be so big now. I'd really love to see him. Just driving by your old neighborhood. Lots of memories. Still up for that coffee? He didn't have my new address. How did he know I wasn't in the old apartment? The article, I supposed. It mentioned the business was locally based. He was fishing. The slightly scary part, read it, isn't that he's some monster. It's the insidiousness of it. The way he slides back in, all smooth charm and feigned nostalgia, as if he has some right to be here, in this life I painstakingly built from the rubble he left behind. It's the way my hard-won peace feels suddenly fragile, threatened. Against my better judgment, fueled by a stupid, lingering sense of obligation for Leo's sake. Leo, who only has vague, idealized memories of his father. I agreed to meet him. Public place. Daytime. A bustling coffee shop downtown. He looked older, still handsome, but the charm felt a little worn around the edges, like a favorite jacket that's seen too many seasons. There were lines around his eyes I didn't remember. He was thinner. He gushed about Kindred Craft Co. Clara, you're amazing. I always knew you had it in you. That talent. I'm so proud of you. Proud of me? The audacity. I just sipped my latte, my knuckles white around the mug. He talked about Leo. He must be a great kid. I've missed so much. I regret that, Clara. I really do. I was a mess back then. Made a lot of mistakes. Mistakes. Such a small word for such a monumental betrayal. Then he got to the point. Or, what I suspected was the point. So this business of yours, it's really taking off, huh? You must be doing pretty well for yourself. His eyes had a certain gleam, a calculating look that I remembered all too well from when he'd try to sweet-talk me into investing in one of his harebrained schemes. I make a living, I said, my voice carefully neutral. Just a living? He chuckled. Come on, Clara. That article made it sound like you're practically the next big thing in artisanal goods. You must be looking at expanding, right? Maybe need an investor? Or, a partner? Someone with business savvy? There it was. The air in the coffee shop suddenly felt thick, cloying. My skin prickled. My business is fine, David, I said, my voice colder than I intended. I have a good team. Oh, sure, he said, waving a hand dismissively. But I'm talking about vision, Clara. The big picture. I've learned a lot these past few years. Got some great ideas that could really take Kindred Craft to the next level. We always made a good team, you and I, in the beginning. My stomach churned. The casual assumption that he could just waltz back in and claim a stake in something he had no part in building. Something that was born from my sweat and tears while he was, who knows where, doing who knows what. The conversation ended soon after. I was polite but firm. No, I wasn't looking for partners. Yes, Leo was doing well. I would think about him seeing Leo. A lie, or at least a stalling tactic. But he hasn't stopped. That was a month ago. The texts continue. Just had a brilliant idea for a new product line for Kindred. Saw a great retail space for lease. Made me think of you. Then last week, he escalated. He showed up at my workshop, my new workshop, at my new house. How did he find it? My business address is a P.O. box. The article didn't mention my home address. Did he follow me? The thought sent a shiver down my spine. The air in my sanctuary, my creative space, suddenly felt tainted. He was all smiles, carrying a cheap bouquet of grocery store carnations. Surprise, just happened to be in the neighborhood. Liar. This neighborhood is purely residential, miles from any commercial area he'd likely frequent. My assistant, Maria, looked alarmed. I managed to keep my voice even. David, this is my home. You can't just show up here unannounced. Oh, come on, Clara, don't be like that. I just wanted to see where the magic happens. And to bring you these, he thrust the flowers at me. They smelled faintly of wilted greens. And, he added, his voice dropping a little, a conspiratorial gleam in his eye, I really think we need to talk seriously about my proposal. About us working together. About us, Clara. I've missed you. I've missed what we had. I was a fool to walk away. I see that now. You're successful. You're more beautiful than ever. We could have it all again. Better this time. Read it. I almost threw up. The way he looked at me, at my workshop, it wasn't with love or genuine remorse. It was with an appraiser's eye. He wasn't seeing me. He was seeing an asset, an opportunity. My success wasn't a testament to my strength. It was a beacon signaling that I was now worth his time again. The us. He wanted to reinsert himself not just into my business, but into my life, into Leo's life, as if the last 6 years of abandonment and struggle were just a minor blip. The atmosphere around me feels haunted. Not by ghosts, but by him. By his persistence. By the way he looks at me, like he's entitled to what I've built. There's a sadness to it. Yes, the death of any lingering foolish hope that he might have genuinely changed, that he might feel actual remorse. But underneath that sadness, there's a thread of something else. A prickling unease. A feeling of being hunted, not physically but emotionally, financially. He knows I'm a single mom. He knows the good guy image is important. He keeps mentioning Leo, how much he wants to be a father to him now. He's trying to leverage my son, my decency, against me. Last night, I was working late in the workshop, the scent of leather and dye usually so comforting, but I kept looking over my shoulder, half expecting to see his face pressed against the window. The shadows in the corners seemed deeper, more menacing. Every creak of the old house made me jump. This isn't just about him wanting back in. It's about him trying to take something that is sacred to me, my peace, my security, the life I built for myself and my son when he was nowhere to be found. I told him, firmly, when he showed up, that I wasn't interested, that us was over, and Kindred Craft Co was mine alone. He just smiled that charming, slightly predatory smile. "You'll change your mind, Clara. We're meant to be." He left, but his words hang in the air, heavy and suffocating. He doesn't sound like he's taking no for an answer, and that, Reddit, is what's truly unsettling. It feels less like a plea for reconciliation and more like a quiet, patient siege. The sad part is, the ghost of the man I once loved. The scary part is the reality of the man he's become, and what he might do to get what he now wants. I've documented everything. I've spoken to a lawyer, just in case, about harassment, though he hasn't technically crossed that line yet. But the atmosphere of my life has changed. That vibrant color I fought so hard to bring back, it feels like it's dimming again, under the shadow of his return. TLDR, ex-husband who abandoned me and our young son when I lost my job and we had nothing has resurfaced 6 years later. Now that I've built a successful handmade business from scratch, he's full of praise and regret, but it's clear he's more interested in my success and wants to partner in my business and my life. His persistence is unnerving, and his presence feels like a threat to the peace and security I worked tirelessly to create. It's gone from sad to slightly terrifying. Edit 1. Wow. Thank you all for the supportive messages and the advice. It helps, just knowing I'm not overreacting to this feeling of unease. A lot of you are suggesting a formal cease and desist if he shows up at my home workshop again. My lawyer mentioned this as a next step too. It feels so extreme, but then again, him showing up uninvited is extreme. Edit 2. Small, creepy update. I got a package delivered to the workshop today. No return address, just my name and the workshop address, which again he shouldn't have easily. Inside was a single expensive-looking leather hide, the kind I use for my premium bags, and a note in David's handwriting. Thought this might inspire our next big collaboration. Looking forward to it. Day. My stomach is in knots. This isn't a gift, it's a claims. It's him marking his territory. The sad feeling is almost entirely gone now, Reddit. It's being replaced by a cold, determined anger. And yeah, a definite layer of fear. He's not listening. He's escalating.